This is The Creative Way on the Jefferson Exchange. I'm Vanessa Finney. Oregon has a rich cultural heritage that includes living traditional arts passed down for generations. Increasing public awareness about them is one of the driving forces of the Oregon Folklife Network, which opened its doors at the University of Oregon in 2010 and was later adopted by the Museum of Natural and Cultural History. My guest today has been with the OFN for 15 years and is now its director. Emily Hartlerode, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Vanessa. It's so great to be here.
And it's a pleasure to finally talk to you because I've been leafing through your online resources for months, and I've become really interested in your programming. Why don't you start by
Thank you.
basically telling us more about the Oregon Folklife Network and its mission?
Sure, yeah. So the Oregon Folklife Network is the Oregon Arts Commission's designated partner to produce folk and traditional arts programming for the state of Oregon. We do that work statewide with a mission to know about and support the various cultural heritages and culture keepers who are in our state today, and then to create public programs or to support others to create public programs in their communities that help us all to know about, appreciate, and celebrate the wide variety of people and cultures who are here, our neighbors in our communities, right around the corner, right next door. And it's best if we know about each other and can learn more about the world that's just right outside our doors.
That's right. You mentioned the variety. I get a sense that folk life in Oregon is probably more varied than a lot of people realize, right? We might expect things like old-time fiddle music and saddle making and coos storytelling, but we also have Chinese puppeteers. Do you have other examples to show the breadth of this artistic folk life that our state is home to?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, we have Ukrainian weavers, we have traditional Native American wood carvers and basket weavers around us. We have Latino mariachi trumpet players. We have Asian Indian Carnatic singing. We have Japanese taiko drumming. It's really everywhere and all around us. And sometimes even folks think about what you can really overtly see sometimes with, like you even mentioned some of the rural, like buckaroo traditions, but even like Norwegian rose mauling, folks who Finnish sauna. This is things that you may not be able to know or see about a person's heritage by how we might look the same or different in the world, but we all carry heritage from wherever our roots are around this great big globe.
That gets into, on your website it says that folk life includes forms as new as hip-hop and as ancient as Native American basket weaving. How do you define folk life?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, for us, one of our primary funders is the National Endowment for the Arts. And so, and they have quite a conservative definition of what a culture keeper can be for eligibility in traditional arts. And much of that has to do with carrying on what we have inherited. And some of that is ethnic. Some of it might be based on where our people come from geographically, but then some of it can also be occupational, for example, connected to a particular place. In the state of Oregon, we have ranching traditions, and that gets carried on generation after generation. You grow up with a ranching family, and you just know how to do that cowboying work. And also, if you are out on the coast, then you very well may be born into a fishing family. And so you learn from early on what your parents and their grandparents have done in terms of bringing in fish, making nets, mending nets, all the kinds of things that go along with those kinds of occupations. So we think of cultural heritage as being something that can be ethnic, but it can also be sacred in nature. It can be occupational. It can be connected to a place.
Okay. And you mentioned the phrase culture keepers. How do you
Yeah.
differentiate between so-called folk-inspired art and culture keepers?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I will vacillate a little between talking about the folks we serve as being traditional artists, being culture keepers, heritage bearers, and part of that is that many people who fall under our umbrella of eligibility for support don't really think of themselves as artists. And so traditional artist is a word that they may not really resonate with. So it's really in an attempt to help people feel more like they can understand what we're about, that I work in those kind of that I vary the words that I'm using, but we are very clear that we need to support folks who are passing on a tradition that's really part of their own cultural community, so that we don't end up, unfortunately, mistakenly supporting something that is appropriative of someone else's cultural heritage. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. My guest is Emily Hartlerode, who earned a master's degree in folklore and a certificate in gender studies from the University of Oregon, where she trained in feminist ethnographic fieldwork and documentary filmmaking. She's now the director of the Oregon Folklife Network. You're listening to The Creative Way on the Jefferson Exchange. Emily, part of how you accomplish what you were just talking about is through the Traditional Arts Apprenticeship Program, which is currently funded by the NEA that you mentioned. Tell us about that program.
Yeah, so our Traditional Arts Apprenticeship Program is an opportunity for awardees. So it's an application process, and a mentor and an apprentice from the same cultural community apply together to learn and teach an art form that is from that shared cultural community. And those are, we in the office will support those applicants to the best of our ability to put in as strong an application as possible, because we in the office do not judge those. We pull together a review panel of various kinds of cultural experts and other tradition keepers, and we score those to be able to then award usually about 4 awards a year, and those go to the highest ranking, and also to a slate of artists who we want to ensure that we are getting those dollars all around the state and to the various demographics of our state. And in exchange for an award, a monetary stipend that goes to the mentor, the apprentice gets to have free lessons for 6 to 9 months, and then the team agrees to let us come in and interview them. We do a professional videographer comes in and produces a 3 or 5 minute video about what they do, why they do it, why it's so important to all of us that these cultural traditions are sustained over time. And then they also produce a public program.
And if my memory is serving me right, one example of this that I saw on your website was a trumpeter in the mariachi tradition, right?
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great example.
I love that. It's so empowering for these artists. So
Yeah.
another part of what the Oregon Folklife Network does is create opportunities for folk artists to present their works to the public. What are some recent past examples of those events?
Yeah, so one that still is available for folks who are convenient to the Eugene area is our Oregon Culture Nights. We do a summer series that's about a month long, and it is an opportunity for artists who have either won that apprenticeship award or were a finalist who got close to come out and present their cultural art form. This year we have had an Irish singer, we've had Asian Indian Bharatanatyam, a form of dance, and then also Asian Indian Carnatic singing. And next week we have a Palestinian embroiderer, Ferial Abasi-Ghanem.
And I see that she was a National Heritage Fellow in 2018. So you can people can see her in Eugene on July 31st. Where is that actually presented?
Usually it's at the Museum of Natural and Cultural History out at in our courtyard, but in the case of Ferial, she will be inside the museum, and these special programs that highlight culture keepers are included in admission to the museum. And so this last one will be happening in one of our exhibit spaces, and she'll have examples of her work there. She will have the apprentice she's been working with. She'll have a slideshow so she can really show us the details of the history of this art form and also what it looks like on dresses and garments and scarves and the stories that are behind these embroidered symbols, the messages that women have carried and sent to each other through embroidery before women were allowed to read and write or taught to read and write. This is a way that women previously would talk to each other, would communicate. And so this is something that she teaches us through what she's learned from her grandmother and what her grandmother learned from her grandmother. And so it's really important that we learn about the deep histories that we've inherited and how we pass them on today.
Agreed. So you mentioned she had an apprentice,
Yeah.
so she was part of that traditional arts apprenticeship program. You've been almost with this organization since the beginning, the first year anyway. Have you had a chance to see multiple generations of artists come through? In other words, does 1 year's apprentice then become a presenting artist or even a master artist with her or his own apprentice?
That certainly does happen over time. And just to clarify, there has been a Folklife program for the state of Oregon even prior to my stewarding it starting in 2010. Prior to that, it was at the Oregon Historical Society for a decade or so, and before that, it was at Lewis and Clark College. So, and many of us who hold state positions across the nation as the state folklorist have also seen this kind of over time where apprenticeships help a cultural art form to continue on generation after generation, and we see apprentices come into their own as mentors. And that's part of the idea behind supporting this work, is that apprentices are promising to become that next leader and culture keeper for a community.
Okay, so then they continue to be a part of the fabric of our culture here in Oregon.
Absolutely, yeah. And even if they don't choose to become a leader within their community and carry that on for their lifetime, what we find is that passing on these cultural traditions is really has value beyond the ability to dance the steps or make the musical sounds or produce the garments, but really underneath all of that teaching is how to be with one another, when to do this work, how to do this work. And doing these cultural art forms, we see that people learn more deeply human values about things we all share in common, how to work slow and carefully with your work, how to have a generous heart and taking only what you need. These are values that we can all benefit from and just make us better citizens in the world.
And that's part of what we expect from the humanities programs. Your activities are sort of at the intersection of arts and education. Just in the last minute or so we have left, what organizations collaborate with you at either the government or the community grassroots level?
Oh, yeah. Well, we work very closely with the Oregon Arts Commission, and they are a funder for us as well as a partner. So within the Oregon Arts Commission, we would have the Arts Ed and Percent for Arts organizations or program officers in there that we can collaborate with. And then also we are recipients of Oregon Cultural Trust dollars, and so that means we have that network of the humanities, Oregon Historical Society, Oregon Heritage Commission, the State Library. These are the folks who are also interested in getting connections with people who are cultural leaders throughout the state.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then there's a great number of grassroots organizations who come to us as well for support.
Wonderful. Emily, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to The Creative Way on the Jefferson Exchange. My guest was Emily Hartlerode, director of the Oregon Folklife Network. You can watch their videos on the OFN's YouTube channel and learn more about their entire program and its calendar of events online at natural-history.uoregon.edu. And that's it for today's JX. JeffExchange.org is our website where you can find these conversations and more. I'm Vanessa Finney. You can subscribe to our shows wherever you get your podcasts.